In a small impoverished village nestled in a lush valley, 18-year-old Mariam lived with her family. The village, caught between the extremes of nature, was a place of both beauty and hardship. Thick mist blanketed the land in the mornings, only for the sun to scorch the earth by midday. Their home, built from cracked mud bricks and a thatched roof, stood against the harsh elements, fragile but enduring. Despite the challenges, torrential rains that flooded the dirt roads and dry months that left the land cracked, Mariam's family clung to their land, hoping for a better future. Mariam's father, once the pillar of the family, had always been strong, his hands weathered by years of hard work. But one fateful day, an accident on the farm shattered that strength. A slip on the slick ground left him with a leg injury that would never heal. The doctor's words were devastating. He would never be able to work the land again. This sudden loss turned their already precarious situation into one of survival. With her father unable to provide, Mariam's mother stepped into the role of the sole provider. She worked tirelessly from dawn until dusk, washing clothes for neighbours, her hands stained with the dirt of the day's labour. When the laundry was done, she would tend to a small garden at the back of their house, selling the meagre vegetables she grew. Her life was one of endless sacrifice. She never once complained, driven by a fierce love for her family and a determination to keep them afloat. Mariam, with a heart full of gratitude, often wondered how long her mother could keep up the struggle. The weight of responsibility rested heavily on her young shoulders, but she never voiced her burden. Her siblings, too young to understand, looked to her for guidance, and she provided it without hesitation. Each day began before the sun rose. Mariam set off to the well, a journey that felt endless, carrying heavy jugs of water back home. The walk was exhausting, but she didn't mind. It was just part of the rhythm of her life. Sometimes she met other women along the path, quiet greetings exchanged, the weight of their burdens shared, but often the silence was her only company, broken only by the distant calls of birds and the soft shuffle of her own footsteps. Back at home, Mariam prepared meals from what little they had. Rice, beans, and sometimes maize, simple foods that nourished her siblings through the long days. Sometimes, though, there was only water and the hope that tomorrow would bring more. After meals, Mariam sat by the dim light of an oil lamp mending their clothes. Her mother's hands were too tired to sew, so Mariam took up the task herself. With each stitch, she mended more than just their garments. She sewed the resilience of a family that refused to be broken, even by the weight of poverty. Yet, despite her overwhelming responsibilities, Mariam still held on to a dream of education. She had once been a bright student, eager to learn and make her parents proud. But when her mother became ill and the family's funds dwindled, Mariam made the painful decision to leave school. Her family needed her more. She told herself that her education could wait as long as they survived. But in the quiet moments of the evening, when the world seemed a little less demanding, Mariam's heart ached for the knowledge she had lost. She dreamed of a future where she could return to school, where she could hold a book in her hands again and feel the joy of learning. It wasn't just about herself, it was about her family. She knew that an education could offer a way out, a chance to break free from the cycle of poverty that had bound them for generations. As Mariam lay awake in her small room one night, the moonlight filtering through the cracks in the walls, she found herself thinking about the future. The quiet of the night offered her the space to dream, to hope that one day her sacrifices would lead to something greater, not just for her, but for her siblings. Her journey wasn't one of giving up. It was a journey of sacrifice, of perseverance, and of hope. Every step she took was a step towards something better, even when it felt impossible. She kept going because deep down, she knew that change could come, even if it was slow and hard-won. And so, Mariam continued. With every task, every sacrifice, she was not just surviving, she was building the strength she needed to rise above her circumstances. She believed, with all her heart, that one day, her dream of education would not just be hers, it would be the key to a better life for her family too. The discussion Mariam had overheard still seemed to ring in her ears, the weight of her parents' anxieties upon her mind. Her father, once strapping and confident, suddenly sounded as if he had broken. His voice faltered when speaking of loans they could no longer possibly repay. Her mother had quieted down, sobs running in the background, hopeless, while bills piled higher and creditors were becoming more and more peremptory every day. It pained Mariam to see her parents, the lines on their aging faces, the stress and exhaustion it spoke, how they gave all they could to her. But now, whatever hard work they did was like swimming in a sea of debts and sinking deeper. Yet, the dream seemed more and more distant with time. Mariam knew something had to change. The rumors of work across the border had been milling around for months, whispers of jobs in factories and homes as domestic workers reached her ears. The pay was uncertain, but it promised just enough to send money home. Still, Mariam had heard the dangers too. Stories of exploitation, unsafe conditions, and of people who never returned. She knew the risks, yet the weight of responsibility for her parents' survival made her have to make a choice she never thought she'd be faced with. The next morning, after a wakeful night of sleepless contemplation, Mariam packed a small bag with clothes, some food, and a few coins she had saved over time. She leaned forward and kissed her mother's forehead as she slept, silently promising herself it would be worth it. Her father was already up, out in the garden, but his bleary eyes met hers. She swallowed, her heart heavy, and spoke with quiet determination. "Father, I will work across the border. I'll send money back as soon as I can." Her father looked at her, pride and concern mingling in his face. "Mariam, it's dangerous. You're still so young. I know, father, but I just can't sit and watch you suffer. I have to try. Promise, I'll be careful." The pain in her father's eyes spoke volumes. With one last hug, Mariam stepped out of their home, leaving behind the only life she had ever known. The path ahead was not clear, but it was the only path she could take. It was a long and hazardous journey. Mariam walked for days, avoiding highways and dependent on the charity of strangers for food and shelter. She encountered others on the road, some optimistic, others desperate, each with their own reasons for leaving home. But she never lost her resolve. She thought of her parents, the struggles they had put up with, and the future she wanted to provide for them. When Mariam finally crossed over the border, she found herself immersed in a thick city, thick with the smells of spices she didn't recognize, the sounds of language she didn't understand. But it wasn't long before she realized that finding work wasn't going to be quite that easy. The city was full of people like her, migrants looking for a way out, and jobs were short. Many weeks had gone by, yet her search had no success. Never giving up, she kept pushing her way until she could get a means of sending some money back home. She got a job in a well-endowed family as a domestic worker. The work bitter, long hours with minimal pay. It was just work, though. All coins that came her way went to her parents' one sacrifice closer to giving them the best. Through all the weariness and hardship, Mariam never lost sight of her dream to keep her eyes fixed on that hope that one day she would return home, not empty-handed but with enough money to pay off her parents' debts, to build them a better home, to give them the life they had always dreamed of. In a moment of adversity, Mariam found an inner strength she never knew she possessed. Though painfully sad, the sacrifice that she made marked the beginning of a new era in her family's future. But it had never been easy. Her heart ached every time she thought about her parents, her mother's face etched with worry, her father's eyes tired. The thought of their struggles, even while working herself to the bone, kept her going. And she knew that as long as she was still breathing, she could keep pushing. She would do whatever it took to change their lives. Mariam's journey was one of sacrifice, perseverance, and hope. The future may have seemed really far away, but at least it was a future she could shape with her hands. With every step forward that she took, she had hoped that change would come, even if it might take time. For her family, for herself, and for the better life which she knew was possible. Thank you for watching the first part of Mariam's inspiring story. Be sure to subscribe to Mama Tales and share this video with your friends and family. Stay tuned. Part 2 is coming soon.